Hey, I didn't know it was Tom's birthday today. Kazra wished Tom a happy birthday, so happy birthday back to Tom. Hey, that's another milestone in the books. But so welcome to the show, everybody. It's our 306th episode, and we've got Ron Shepard joining us tonight. Many of you probably know Ron from from his CAF Gallery. It's full, chock full of primarily commissions. I think we over 1,400 pieces, but he's told me he's got far more than that in reserve. And as we've seen many times in the past, he's posted a lot of pieces into the sketchbooks. We're going to find out his methodology for getting all these pieces onto CAF and when we might see the full collection finally reach his gallery. So here, let me bring Ron in and we'll get this thing started. Hey, Ron, how you doing?
Hey, good evening, everybody.
It's good to have you here. We obviously we've emailed quite a bit over the years. We've met in person at the first OAX, and now we're finally doing one of these things live. It's nice to have you on the show so that people can meet you face to face, sort of, after seeing your work on CAF for quite some time.
Well, I appreciate it. And let me just, anybody that's joined that knows me, let me clear something up right away from the beginning. No, I'm not wearing any pants. So I just
Oh,
wanted to throw this, I just
it's gonna
wanted
be
to
one
make
of those
sure
kind of
everybody,
shows then.
yeah,
Well,
I
then
just
don't
want,
stand up. That's the only recommendation I can make. We don't there might be children watching right now. This could be on somebody's television right this minute.
it could be, and I suggested you start educating them early. So it may be one of those nights.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's a great place for us to get started. So we're starting really way back at the beginning. So Ron, what brought you to CAF in the first place? I mean, you've been on the site, and I should throw the link to your CAF gallery in the chat. It is in the show description as well. I know you started posting art onto CAF like around 2014 or so. So that's 11 years ago. But were when did you start collecting, and how did that ended up where you ended up
Well,
everything on CAF?
for me, I was an artist way back in the Jurassic period. Ended up, and I don't know how many guys are out there, women or are old enough to remember back when we had matchbooks and they used to have this little advertisement on it says "Draw me," and it used to be pirate, little turtle, and whatever.
Turtles. Yeah.
And you send it in, and I did one of those. I drew a pirate, and I sent it in, and the people from art instructional school showed up at my house. And surprisingly, my father agreed to pay for me to attend their correspondence course. And I did that and I passed that. And then it was time for me to graduate high school a couple years later. And I didn't know what I wanted to do. I just knew I did not want to go to school anymore. I was done. But I ended up walking ass backwards into a scholarship at the local community college. And I still didn't know what I wanted to do. And I found they had a program for commercial. It was called communications design, which was commercial art. I
Hmm.
really didn't know what that was, but if you're anybody old enough to remember the old show Bewitched, and that's what the husband Darren did. He was a commercial artist,
Did you wear
coming
a
up with
suit for it?
logos and yeah. Well, no, not really.
Okay.
But I saw that and I signed up for that course. You had your regular courses, of course, and then you had the stuff that was part of the curriculum. And the people were brutal. I grew up in New Jersey, not too far out of New York City, and the people that ran this course, they worked in the marketing area field in New York, and they had us do time trials, stuff. They would give you an assignment, just like you would get from a client, and said, come up with a full working mechanical, a logo, and slogan, and all of that. And they would watch how you worked. They would watch and see if your work was clean. This was before computer graphics. So you had to do everything by hand, creating your mechanicals, everything by hand. And if they didn't like what you were doing, they would come up to you in class and say, well, you can finish out this course, but we're not giving you permission to move on. And that was it. We started out, it was 35, 40 of us. When we finished that program, it was five of us left. So I figured
Wow.
that art would always be a secondary career for me. So something to fall back on. But my career went in another direction. And long story short, I haven't picked up a pencil to draw anything in 40, 45 years. But I still love the art. Never quite got the whole reading comic book things every week. And I still don't read any comic books, but I like the art. I love meeting the artists and seeing their skills and talking to them about how they go about doing things. So I started attending, I don't know, maybe 40 years ago, started going to little local shows, and I would take a little sketchbook with me.
Hmm.
And, well before eBay. And I would say, hey, I like what you're doing. Could you maybe draw something in my book? Sometimes, well, most times they would say yes. Sometimes they would do a nice detailed drawing. Sometimes they would do something okay. Sometimes they draw something. You looking at them, they're looking at you. You're looking at the page, going, "What the hell was that?" It's like some kind of schizophrenic nightmare. So, but it was free. Then later on, they started.
You can't be choosy when they're not charging.
Yeah, I mean, but I didn't know about. I didn't know actual comic book art like you guys collect was even available. I didn't know that was a thing because I didn't read comic books. So over the years, I collected volume after volume after volume. I think I have 6 complete volumes. What is the old size, like 8 by 11 or something like that, 8.5 by 11. And I would get these sketches. So, and this was long before Baltimore became the monster that it is now. We used to be at a hotel and going from room to room. That was the Baltimore Convention. And first year of the Baltimore, no, excuse me, second year of the Baltimore Convention, the way it is now, I'm standing in line, J. Scott Campbell, and the line was long. And I was hoping that if I had my sketchbook, that he would draw something in it. So I'm standing in line. Young kid behind me says, "Hey, can I see your sketchbook?" I handed it to him, and he says, "Hey, I'm an artist. Can I draw something in?" We had time to kill, so he took a ballpoint pen and did this beautiful drawing of Batman. Now, and I will add that I was not very smart in those days. People did drawings, and I never printed the names on the backs or anything. So I have no idea who most of these people are. Just signatures, you can't read them. There was a guy in front of me in line. He looked at another one of my sketchbooks. He said, "Hey, hold my spot in line. I want to show you something." So he leaves, comes back. Now, this guy I'd see him at different conventions. He was handicapped. He had cerebral palsy, something like that, but he'd always be at the shows. He comes back with these 2 large pieces of cardboard with duct tape on the ends, like hinges. Opens it up, and he had some of the most beautiful, full color, detailed artwork I'd ever seen by top artists in those days. And this was like 2006, something like that. And I said, "Man, I like you, and I would hit you in the head and take your stuff." I said, "So you better be careful with this." I said, "How are you able
There's
to?"
stiff penalties for stuff like that, Ron. You know
Well,
that.
not if they're not looking. But so
I
and
get you.
and
I got to ask though. You said you weren't reading comics, so how did you know
no,
which artists you wanted to
because
target?
I'd gone from the shows, and this is what I did. I have a good memory, so I would stand around and listen to people talking about comic books.
Hmm.
So I memorized what they would say about different characters, what character did what, and who and where. And I knew by asking around, I would see the different artists and ask people questions like, "Well, who drew this and who drew that?" And I had a friend of mine who was really heavily into comic books. And, every Wednesday or when the comic books came out, we couldn't go out and play and do anything because he had to read his comic books first. So he would throw me a comic book. Like I remember reading a couple of Ghost Rider. I remember Werewolf by Night. I remember The Punisher. So I knew some of those people. Like if I was hard pressed in those days, I knew the name of Mike Zack. That's the only thing that I knew, from those. So I asked the guy in line, and I said, "How are you able to afford all these drawings?" Because even in 2006, these guys was charging a small fortune. And I looked at him, he smiled. I said, "You're using your handicap, aren't you?" He would make people feel sorry for him, and he would get art, but hey, it worked for him. And he would get art, and he had charity auctions and stuff like that for different medical things. So you can't really blame him. But after that, I said, I've been collecting all these little sketches. I wonder if I can get a sketchbook and get some really detailed stuff in a book. So I went out, And I thought about it. I thought about it. 2 years later, I finally bought a 11 by 14 sketchbook. I didn't know about different paper quality. I didn't know about it. I just bought the book. Started going to local shows, and I would get people to draw things in the book. And then artists are competitive. So people would look at what somebody did before them and they would do something better. And it became a thing. Halfway through that first book, the spine broke. Pages were falling out and I didn't know what to do. So I found a bookbinder in my area. Turns
Hmm.
out he worked for the Library of Congress and he bind books for doctoral theses from Princeton, from Georgetown, and big schools like that. So I took my book and I asked him, could he fix it? He said, yeah, I could sew these back in, give you nice cloth covers. And he said, but have you ever thought about doing something in leather? I said, leather? I said, is that even possible? How much is that going to be? He said, I'll charge you $50 more. So he did my first big book in leather, gold writing and everything on it. So I started passing that around, sending it out. If somebody
Looked
couldn't draw something,
impressive. It wasn't just the standard black,
no,
sketchbook.
no. And I became known as that sketchbook guy. People didn't know my name, but they knew that book. And
Hmm.
artists would talk. So before I finished that book, I started volume two. I took it straight to him, had him make it up in a different color and leather, and volume two. And I started. So the first one took me 4 years to complete. Second one took me 2 years. I wasn't going to do anymore. I said, that's it. I'm done. But other artists kept coming to me saying, you can't stop now. I didn't get a chance to put anything in there. And, we like looking at the stuff and it's collected, everything. So I kept going. Then it got to, well, some artists like Daniel Govar, he likes to do, he does primarily watercolor. So
Hmm.
he says, well, I did a couple drawings in your book, but the paper kind of buckled and things. He said it'd be a shame, but if you could have watercolor paper, it'd be great. So I went out and bought some pads of watercolor paper, the same size, took them back to the same guy, and had him bound those up. So as we speak right now, I have 6 complete of the original sketchbooks, the smaller one. I have 4 complete of the 10 by 14 because you lose an inch, so it's 10 by 14 pages.
Hmm.
And then I have 2 that are working right now, volume 5 and 6. They're out. Jeff Edwards, artist, has one, and Lance Hunru, he goes by that. He's one of the artists that you're going to see tonight. He has my booking. So one book's in Kansas and the other book's in California somewhere. So, and it
Interesting.
became a thing. And then I started discovered sketch covers, and I said, wow, this is the original sketch covers was a pencil drawing with a little box on the cover. And then Mike Zeck actually drew my first one on there. He drew James Jonah Jameson on the Spider-Man Authentics cover, it was called.
You have over 800 sketch covers in your CAF
Yes,
gallery
yeah,
today.
I do. I have, and I have probably about another 25 that I haven't even posted yet. And then it became regular sketch covers. Then Mad Magazine did their own version of sketch covers some years back, and I have like, I don't know, 80 of those. And then Heavy Metal Magazine did their own sketch covers, so I got some of those, and it just became a thing. And I'm very happy, and I look back and I look at the collection, and I hope people enjoy seeing that. And it's been a challenge, but I love doing it. Matter of fact, Nick just came on in. We coined a new way of calling. We don't call them sketch covers. We call them commissioned commission cover art (CCA). I came up with that name, and we've been using that on Nick's channel for the last couple
Oh
of
yeah,
years.
I know it works. It flows. But yeah, we can't change the art type on CAF, but
No,
I
no,
like
no.
that.
That's
It works
fine.
good on Nick's channel.
Yeah. But it's been so along the way I've collected, I would go and I would go to people's tables and they had loose art, stuff that they've already done.
Hmm.
And I would buy some of that and I would buy some more. Then I would buy some more. Then I started on eBay. I would buy a sketch cover from somebody. And then I would reach out to them, the artists, especially for artists from overseas. And I would say, hey, I like your work. And, I can't send my sketchbook to you, but can we do some commissions from there? So I would get artwork from those guys. I would find out artist names and they would send me their personal information and I would reach out to them. And um, I didn't include it, but like Arvell Jones, I don't know how
Sure.
many of your audience know who he is, but
Oh yeah.
somebody that told me about him and I reached out. Somebody gave me his phone number. I reached out, told him I had my sketchbooks, and I asked him if he would draw something. He said, sure. He did it for free, and he just asked me what I wanted to put in there. It's up on the site, I think. But
You
he,
know, when we're going to be looking at a lot of your artwork tonight, and I don't sense a theme in the characters that you have. There's
well,
there's a
here
few that are repeated here or there, but in all the pieces that you sent me, they're few and far between where you have the same character.
here's what I this is just my thought. I've run into other guys with sketchbooks. They have a theme. I want you to draw Wolverine in the dress, or some craziness like that. Whatever they. I only want Iron Man
I
in
haven't
my.
met that guy yet.
Yeah, you don't want
I
to.
don't think
He
anybody
hangs around at
wants
bus
to.
stations. You don't want that guy.
Right, right.
So what I found was that if you go to an artist and you say draw Captain America, let's say, and that's really not his thing to draw. Now he'll do a pretty good job, but he won't do his best job because that's not a character he's interested in. So what I did was I don't have themes. I will come up to the artist, look at what they've done, kind of find out what they're interested in, and we'll talk about what he would like to draw and get them excited about it. And that's how I've been going about it. Now, having said that, I have a small sketchbook that I bought down in your neck of the woods, down at the Harry Potter Park. It was
Hmm.
for writing journals with pen and ink, but I figured it would hold up for drawing.
Sure.
And I bought one, had Gryffindor on it, and fancy little book. So I went to artists and asked them to draw Harry Potter related. So I figured with photographs and things they can look up on Google, whether they like doing buildings, whether they like doing creatures, whether they like doing people, there's something Harry Potter related they could do that they would be excited about. So I filled up that book. And but yeah, the no theme thing seems to work for me. And people say, "Hey, what's your theme?" I don't have one. What do you want to draw? Let's talk about it. So it's worked. And here we are sitting in front of you looking at my stuff with no theme.
No, that's fantastic. I know the Harry Potter books that you're talking about because we go to Universal a couple times a year, well, 4 or 5 or 6 times a year, and yeah, those are nice books. They have them, they're with ruled lines, or they actually have them as sketchbooks now too. So it's they're pretty cool. But now do you? I was just looking at your gallery. Do you actually show any photographs of the actual sketchbooks themselves, like like the from the outside, because that might be something cool to add to your calf just so people
Yeah,
can
I,
with
I
how
don't
you
have any of that posted, but I will. I did. It's funny. People ask me all the time about, aren't you afraid of, shipping your book and not getting it back and whatever. When I did the first book, I got to the second to the last page and I sent it, and I won't say the artist's name, but he was recommended to me by Mike Zeck. I sent him the book, and he said he would take a couple weeks to do it. Long story short, he ended up keeping my book for like 5 months. And he stopped answering emails. He stopped answering phone calls. And he didn't want to give my book back. I got the police involved. And finally, uh, I knew where he lived. I knew where he worked. And at the time, I was working for Homeland Security. And some of my people, my friends from Homeland Security, offered to swing by his house and have a chat with him. And I said no. And then finally got to the point where I was actually on the computer getting plane reservations to go get my book. I was going to settle that myself. And I get a call from the final artist who was supposed, Michael Dooney was the final artist. And he said, Ron, you never believe what I have in my hand. I said, what's that? He said, I've got your sketchbook. I had paid them to send it FedEx so it would be signature.
Mhm.
They didn't do that. They just sent it through regular mail. and it got to Boston safely. That's the only, but I took a picture of that sketchbook because I realized I didn't have a picture of it when I was trying to talk to the police. They wanted to know what it looked like, and I couldn't tell them. I had scans of all of the artwork, but not what the actual book looked like. But I will post that on CAF so people can see. In each volume, I'll put a picture of what the book looks like. But
I
each
think
one's a
that would
different.
be
Yeah,
yeah, right. I mean, the intro, like, I don't know if you organize how, well, I should check to see how you organize everything, but if they were organized by sketchbook book, it would be cool to,
yeah.
have the first photo in each of those galleries be the sketchbook. Or you
Well,
reading the sketchbook in some different high top secret government facility, at least like
well,
Alberto
yeah.
just said, don't mess with Ron.
Hey, I was a guy that handled a lot of stuff back in the day. So, but I was pissed, and my wife was begging me. She said, "Don't go down there. Don't go down there. You can get hurt, and you can do." I said, "Listen." At the time, I think I was, I don't know, 50 maybe, and this guy was like 70 something. I said, "Look, anytime I can't take a 70-year-old guy, I'm just hanging it all up and just go sit on the porch." I said, "I'm not worried about that." But we never, in every show I went to after that, she would ask me if that artist was going to be there. And she would tell me, do not go to his table. Do not start anything with this guy. You got your book back, just let it go. I'm not one to let stuff go, but my wife's passed on now, and I have upheld what I promised. He's been at different shows, and I don't even go near him. Not that
So
he
that's
would.
the longest you ever had to wait though, 5 months. I mean,
Yeah,
in the grand scheme of things, that's not terrible. I mean, other than the fact that they probably promised it in 2 or 3 weeks, but that's as track records go, you've heard a lot of commission stories gone
right.
awry. It can happen. There's some crazy time lengths that a lot of people have had to wait for, and it's tough when it's something like that, when you're actually giving them a sketchbook. And commissions are one thing. You're going to get a piece of paper with some art on it mailed to you, but when you're leaving somebody or sending somebody your sketchbook, that's a different matter entirely. And I can understand why you would get a little frustrated with that, and want to get you get the police notified and all that. But 5 months though, that's the longest.
Yeah, that was the longest, and I think because people know my books, they know me now, but mostly they knew the books, and because of that, people weren't apt to keep my book. If they knew they were going to have a delay, they would tell me, "Okay, don't send me the book now. Send it to me come a month from now. We'll touch base when I got time and I can do it and turn it around and get it back to you." Okay, when I met Mike Zeck. I guess it's when he had his own website, and I think eBay had just started up
Hmm.
back in the early 2000s. And I bought some stuff from his website, and his wife was running the website at the time. And I sent her an email, and I said, I have some books that I really like to get Mike to sign because he wasn't doing shows or anything. And I said, you think he would sign them? Mike actually communicated back with me and he said, hey, if you ship me the books, I'll be more than happy to sign them and everything. So I said, hey, that's great. We're getting ready to go. My wife and I were going on vacation. And I said, can I send you the books when we get back? He said, yeah. He said, where are you going? I said, we're going down to Orlando. We have a timeshare there. So we go. He said, really? Orlando? I said, yeah. He said, well, bring the books with you. He says, I live there. And I said, okay. He said, we'll meet for lunch. I'll sign your books. Everything will be cool. I said, all right, fine. And packed the books up and brought them down to Orlando. When I got in, I gave him a call, told him I was in town and, see when he wanted to meet. He said, well, what are you and your wife doing for dinner? I said, well, we just got to the hotel, so I hadn't planned. He said, I tell you what. He says, how about if you meet me and my wife? He said, no, better yet, we'll come and pick you and your wife up and we'll go out to dinner. And I was like, this guy didn't know me from a hole in the ground. I mean, and we went out to dinner, had a great time. We laughed, we joked, we cut up. And I brought one of the sketchbooks, those original sketchbooks with me. And I asked him if he would draw something. He said, well, he says, I can't do it right now. He says, but if you leave the book with me, he says, I'll do something for you. And I said, okay, fine. And I think he said, you just have to pay to get the book sent back. And I said, all right, no problem. And I waited, and a couple months went by, and he finally sent me an email. He said, okay, I'm ready to send the book back. So, okay. So I get the book, and it was one of the thicker ones. So I get the book back, and I go to the first available blank page. There was no drawing. I said, and I go a few more pages in, no drawing. And I'm like, what the hell, right? So I'm looking, and I threw the book on the floor, and it opened the book. It only had like 5 drawings in the book, but he drew his on the last page. So I called him up, gave me his phone number. We talked. I said, Mike, what the hell? He said, when you go to these conventions and you see some of these guys, and he said, most likely I know them. He said, I saw some of the stuff they did in your books. He said, they should be ashamed of themselves. I said, well, Mike, I didn't pay for these things. He said, I don't care. They're going to draw something, draw something. So I said, okay. He said, well, I want you to show them my drawing and say, this is what they're supposed to be doing. I said, I don't know about that. He said, well, you do it. You promised me. I said, okay. So next year, they had the Philadelphia convention. And that's when they had all of the big comic book companies were there, and there was a whole big production. And I had a platinum VIP badge. And that badge allowed for one of the things to have a up close and encounter with John Romita Jr. And he was going to do a drawing for you and, talk and sign stuff and whatever. So my dumbass, when I got there, I showed him and I did what Mike told me to do. And I said, Mike, Zach told me to show you this. And this is what you're supposed to be doing. And I think he was pissed. My drawing that he did was of Daredevil, and mine was the only sketchy looking drawing. Everybody else's stuff had detail to it except mine. I think he was a little pissed. So I stopped telling people that after that.
You let Zach know that it wasn't the proper approach.
No, yeah, I
One
let
that
him
you
know, but he I think on my page is one of the in my gallery is the second drawing he did for me. He went back and I contacted him again when he was in between jobs and asked him. I had the new books, the big books, and I asked him would he do something there, and he did a fantastic. He had done a Daredevil drawing for some magazine in France. And he took the same concept from Daredevil and turned it into a Captain America drawing. And I think it's on my main page there. But the one that Mike did for me, he did a nice drawing of the Punisher, bullet holes in the wall and everything, and telling me to stay out of trouble. So, but over the years, we kept in touch. My wife and him would tease him about trying to get his car when he wasn't looking because he had a white BMW that she loved. We would meet, and when he moved to Georgia, my wife's from Georgia, we would meet him and go out to lunch and stuff with him. And he was a nice guy. He took it pretty hard when my wife passed.
I was so the Zach art isn't one of the pieces that
No, not I didn't. I have Zach and Neil Adams and a few people, but I wanted people can go and they can look up those things and you'll see those things on the site. But I wanted to pick some of the artists that I thought didn't get a whole lot of recognition, but their artwork is supreme. And if people want commissions and stuff for them, a lot of them are still like, I've got Neil Adams, I've got Zach, Bill Morrison, Rudy Nebres. And, I've met all these people and they've done some fantastic work for me over the years, but I wanted to concentrate on the guys that maybe don't get to commission or conventions that much or things like that. And
now I have to show this one because I want to make sure this was not the image that you showed to John Romita Jr.
no, that's the second one that he did. This is the one that he did a variation on what he did for the magazine in France. And instead of Daredevil on the building top, he did Captain America. No, I thought I had it on there, but it's of the Punisher, and it just says, stay out of trouble, Ron. And I think I may have done it for some of the sketchbooks at some point over the months, but I didn't post any of those guys. But yeah, but Mike, he really did a hell of a job with that. And oh, so you can see some of the Zech
Yeah,
stuff.
those are the three Zechs. So we don't have, or it doesn't appear that you have the Zech from the sketchbook that you showed John
No,
earlier.
I have
I
to
think we'd all
post
love to
it.
see what that looked like.
Yeah, and I have to send that so you can see it. But yeah, he did a great job with that, and like I said, he didn't have to, and I was very proud of that piece, and he became a friend over the years. So it's
Well,
good to
that's
talk.
great. That's what separates our hobby from all the other ones. I talk about that all the time, the opportunity to get to know the creators and to form a friendship with them, even somebody whom you hadn't met before. I mean, the idea that Zach would invite you out to dinner and and pick you up.
Right? Yeah. It just I was not expecting any of that, but and I think another thing that helped me get to know these guys was I didn't read comic books, so I didn't know how famous they were. I just knew that they drew some comic books. I didn't know about them. So I wasn't fanboying and all of that. We were just talking and I mess with them, they mess with me, and it's just how it would start off.
Nobody ever asks you for any governmental favors, those sorts of things.
Look, I don't know anybody. They make it clear right now. The agency that I work for, nobody wants favors. And they've made it very clear. Stay out of anybody's cases that don't have anything to do with you directly.
Hmm.
And we have plenty of people we have locked up that we've had to remind them of that. So you don't have to worry about me. I'm not going to jail.
Hey, Dwayne Zapane dropped a super chat in here saying, thanking me for having you on the show because you mean so much to many of the collectors on CAF, and you're always a class act. It's great to
Oh, thank
side
you.
of the hobby, and it's true. A lot of times we focus on collectors who have great collections, or people getting started. But you've been in the hobby for a long time, but your focus has always been on yeah, well, can't say always. You do have some published covers. You actually have
Yes,
more
I do.
covers than you have published interiors. I think you only have 2 interiors, but you have, like, 30 covers. So,
Yeah, and only
how about
because
explaining that one?
I look, Nick, I got some through Nick because the artwork was cool and it just seemed interesting. Or I would be at somebody's table and I didn't, most of the time, I didn't even know there were covers. I thought it was just something they just sat around and drew. So, and because again, I didn't know what was what, I would make hard line deals. Nah, I'm not paying that, and that kind of thing. And I would get them. Then I found out later, oh wow, that's a cover or something. Then I would try to get the comic book, some of the things I have framed and
It's
things.
all making sense now. I say that, and the thing is, like you said, you're not reading comics, so the published pieces don't really hold any significance at all. You're not even that, "Oh, I read that book last year. It would be cool to own the cover." And yeah, I get it now. I mean, to me, the psychology, even though I don't read a lot of comics these days, thank you, Marcus, for reminding everybody every time we do one of these shows. But the thing is, I read a lot of comics. I've read them up till literally like 10 years ago. I was a pretty avid reader. It's just these days I kind of stopped. But so you see stuff, you see stuff you read, and it kind of there's the impulse to buy it, but you don't have that. You're just having fun, getting art, and I think that that's just another way to appreciate this hobby that a lot of people do. I mean, when we go to Heroes Con, for instance, I mean, we talked about this when we were there. There's so many fans of just the characters and the stories that are there that aren't fervent art collectors going after stuff, but they just like to get a sketch from artists that they know will do a good job, right? And those people aren't on CAF. We don't know who, we may never see their collections in a public setting anywhere, but they love the medium. And and there's probably as many or more of those types of collectors out there than there are collectors who go after the published pieces, I would think. And and that's cool, but those people end up unlike you, that a lot of times they don't gravitate to comic art fans to show off their collection. So I guess I come back to that question I asked you, early on. You clearly you've been getting these sketches for well over 25, 30 years, etc. What prompted you to decide to share your art collection on the website?
Well, what happened was my wife would said, "You're collecting all of this crap. Look at all of this stuff. You can't display it. Nobody's looking at it but you. What the hell, right?" So I said, "Well, I don't think I'm ever going to be able to display everything. There's not enough room to, you need, for the stuff that I have, you need a museum to put all of the stuff in. And I said, because I collect many things. So, and I didn't know what to do. And then somebody told me about CAF. And I said, wow, I could scan stuff. At the time, I didn't have a scanner. I was taking photographs at those
Mhm.
days. But I can put stuff up. People can see it. I can give them a URL and they can go in and look. I don't, and so I did it to shut my wife up so I could show her that people are looking at the stuff. At that first page where you can see all of the different views from the main 12 pieces you have, she was stunned at how many people. I think one of the pieces I have is Chris Ivy. I think it's my most viewed piece is Bruce Lee and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar fighting in the from the movie Game of Death. And I think that's the most viewed piece that I have. And I think, what is it, like 12,000 or something like that or more? I don't know.
Oh, it's over 16,000 actually.
Well, there you go. And people see it and it resonates with them. And I started to show her that. And I told her these things are being viewed all over the world. It's not just here in the United States. So she kind of, took her foot off my neck for a while. So, and it was just, it was so, in other words, joining CAF was just a way to keep the nagging level down just a little
Well, that's
bit.
a first. I
Yeah.
don't think I've heard that before, but that's good. I mean, at least she then saw that, that the things that you appreciated, a lot of other people appreciated too. It didn't, she thought differently of your hobby after that. That's
Well,
great.
she would get on me, especially when I started watching Nick's show, and I'd be in the other room and I'd be bidding on comic books and sketch covers and things like that. She's like, "What are you in there doing? Are you in there talking to that Nick guy? How much did you spend this time?" And I said, "No, I'm not looking at Nick. I'm looking at porn." She said, "Okay."
That's better. As long as
Okay. And
as long as that Nick guy's not involved. Uh,
I would make up excuses, and I'd go in there and I would tell him. I told her once that I had got religion and I was listening to some online preacher and stuff, and I was just trying to, every now and then I'd yell out praise Jesus. And so she would leave me alone.
Oh man, your wife was definitely a special woman.
Yes,
That's
yes.
awesome. I mean,
She put up with our,
did you show her? I mean, did she not want to see the things that you got, or
well,
was she
okay.
open to having you share the pieces with her?
I I tried a few times to show my wife some of my collection, and she would get about 10, maybe 15 minutes in, and she said, "Okay, I've seen enough. I can't. It's just too much." She says, "Something's wrong with you and you need to get a grip on this." So I would, she just wanted to know how much it costs. Every now and then somebody would contact me and they'd want to buy something, and reluctantly I would sell it to them, and she was pretty happy about that. But
She liked it when you
over
sold.
the but she said the collection, she said if I try to show her this for insurance purposes for things, and she said, "No, I can't. You got too much and I can't get my head in it, so I'm not interested." But I would tell her, I remember she asked me what I was doing, and I told her during one of Nick's shows, and I said, "Look, I told her that I'm going to take the dog for a walk." So Nick said, "What's wrong with that?" I said, "Well, it's going to take her about 15 minutes to realize we don't have a dog, so I gotta act quick."
Oh man. Well, that's awesome. I saw Marcus mention that Nick preaches the good word of Ken Haeser, and so I did
Oh
check in
yeah,
your CAF gallery.
yeah,
You have over 150 pieces by Ken posted in your
yeah.
CAF.
I met him. He probably doesn't remember, but I met him a long time ago when he was with his partner. He did a book called Living Corpse, I think. Him and his partner, and they were at a show. And I met them and got him to do a drawing in one of my little sketchbooks, little small ones. And we
Mhm.
kept up over the years. And when I saw his name pop up on Nick's show, I said, "I remember that guy. I have some of his stuff." And I like his style. I like what he does, and I like the concept. Now, I not only have the stuff that Nick has, but I've got some more complicated stuff from him. If you look on my site, look up his name. Like he's done some really detailed sketch covers. Like he did one for how the Grinch Stole Christmas, a big like a wraparound cover and things like that. But I've always liked his style, and so I just end up started out. You buy a couple, then you buy a couple more. Next thing you know, you're the leading Ken Haeser collector. So
I'd say you are. You're the number one Hazer fan on CAF. Yeah, I love it. I love his stuff too. I've actually got, two pieces on the wall, right? I've got
yeah,
the Vampirella cover that Nick did for us, and that one Dueling Dealers cover. So no, I think his work is great, and that made a lot of Nick's early shows a lot of fun. Was the
yeah,
works that Ken was doing for that, and there were a lot of sketch covers in there, a few published covers, um, but yeah, no, I agree. It was fun. I mean, it was one of the more enjoyable aspects to Nick shows, other than seeing Nick
yeah,
pumping out with stuff.
yeah.
Getting to see Ken stuff, we even invited Ken to the first OAX. It didn't work out, but it would have been fun to have him, because he was a big part of the whole pandemic era stuff
Oh
for
yeah,
all of us. And yeah, he's one of the names that I always will remember and associate with that time, and that really makes me happy when I think about the work that was done there. And that, and again, I've got some sketch covers by Ken too. I think he's fantastic. And even Scotsman in New York just said Ken Haeser is fantastic.
he's good. Now I do own several of his original covers from some of the books that Nick did.
Hmm.
Um, I said if I have an opportunity because I love his work and to be able to get a cover and get him to get the actual comic book and get that signed, my goal was to take the original art and frame that with the comic book. And then when I got to like the fifth one, I said, okay, I don't have enough room to do that, so let's just put these in the portfolio right now.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, I think we should just start looking at some art and
Let's
then
do it.
name dropping artists for everybody, because you did pick more art than anybody ever has before, and I think we should see it all if we can get through everything, and it's cool. There's a lot of pieces in here that I recall seeing getting posted to CAF, or maybe a couple of these pieces maybe wound up in the sketchbook on CAF as well. But a lot of these I haven't seen, and so it's. Yeah, we should just dive right into it. So here, let me share a different screen here, but let's get that one, swap this around, and come on, where are you? There we go. We're going to start it off with a
Oh.
piece by Brad Green.
Now, I met Brad. He was one of the guys that, I saw his name on eBay. He was selling some artwork. Wasn't going for very much, and I liked his style. So I reached out to him via eBay messaging, and he wrote me back, and I told him about my sketchbooks and what I was trying to do, and I really liked his work. And I asked him if he came to any, he didn't do any conventions. I don't know to this day, I don't know if he still does, but if he's taken that up. But when the death in the family thing, I remember that cover and I thought it was cool artwork. And I asked him if he could do a variation of that cover. And he said, yeah, I think I have an idea and I'll do it. And this is what he did in my sketchbook. And
That's
people
beautiful. I mean, the
really,
colors are so
really
vibrant.
enjoyed
Was
it.
it done on a black board, or is that ink?
No, it's the paper's white. He colored all of that in by
Oh my
hand.
gosh. Yeah, I figured that it was a blackboard that he did it on, but no, the colors
Nope.
are it makes sense. I mean, the colors are so darn vibrant that starting this thing from a white base makes sense. But yeah, I thought this was a striking piece, and it's primarily, I mean, the composition is great, but the colors are really what makes it for me. And the composition that they used here. I mean, the way the blood splatters are on there are kind of ghastly. It's great. It really is really nice.
And he put the afterwards down at the, he said, well, I feel comfortable if I can put that down. I said, I don't care. I mean, I don't know who the
Mhm.
other guy is either. So, but he put it down there he's to show respect.
Well, that is a good one to get us started. Now, another one by Brad here as well.
Right. Brad had drawn a Black Panther, but I don't know what was, I don't read the comic books and I don't know what was happening with Black Panther, but he had this little 5-year-old's cape on. It was like a little tiny cape that was on the back. I don't know what that was all about. And I said, yeah, I would like you to do a Black Panther for me, but I don't want that little cape thing. And he said, yeah, I think I can come up with something. And we would talk about statues and things like that in the pose. And he says, I think I've come up with something. So this is what he came up with. And it's one of my favorite pieces. When the movie came out, this became very popular for people to look at because I think he really captured what I thought Black Panther would look like.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that cape was kind of the regal side to Black Panther. I don't know if did he fight a lot with it. I don't think he
Hey,
did.
I don't know. I don't read the stories, but I know it wasn't just a cape. It was like about 12 inches long. It looked like a 5-year-old's cape. And
It
I
was
don't know what
right.
the
It was
purpose
short,
was.
and it had like a cowl or something as
Right.
well.
And
Yeah.
maybe he was
Hey,
going through some
it was
stuff.
only
I
for,
don't know.
when he had to dress up and go out on the town. That was how he liked to do it. But
I don't know, like the lady said in The Incredibles, no capes. Maybe that was his compromise. I'll just put a little one on.
exactly. Well, I like his style. I mean, to me, that's very like game art from the late '80s. Kind of, he has a kind of a feel to it. So I definitely like his work. And another
And
one
this
from Brad.
was yeah. And now when Brad, because he drew this as I don't know, but it was a bigger piece and it had more steps to the transformation. And I asked him, would he be able to do something like that in my book? Because it's only a 10 by 14 page. And he said, yeah, I can come up with something. He said, it won't be as many phases, but I'll be able to show, enough to, people to understand what's going on. And he did this, and I was very grateful for it.
Well, he has a great sense of color. I'll say that. I mean, again, he's yeah, he definitely likes to play around with stuff. I mean, we just had the Frazetta show last night, and Frank liked to mess around with lots of different colors for highlights and stuff. And I see Brad kind of has a feel, a flair in a similar way. But that's awesome. So this is in a sketchbook. This isn't a
Yeah.
loose.
No, no, no. These are from I picked things from the sketchbook. I did pick loose things too, but this is a sketchbook.
So with these, how often do you break the sketchbooks open? The ones that you've completed.
Well, I don't. They're in plastic bags, and people come over every now and then, and they'll want to see the books, and I'll bring one out and let them look at it. Or some of my god kids will come by if they're old enough. Don't have sticky fingers, then you let them look at it. But for the most part, I have everything scanned in. I can see it on CAF. I can see it on my computer, and and another reason I got to CAF was I can bring up CAF on my cell phone and show
Hmm.
people stuff. Whereas you don't have to store everything on your phone. You can just go to the gallery and just show it.
Right.
And that's another good thing about it.
Have you downloaded the app yet?
What? There's an app?
Yeah.
What the hell, man? Why are you holding out on me?
I I don't know. I thought everybody knew by now. Well, yeah, back in December, we released the app, and about a month and a half ago, even the second version of the app came out. But the cool thing is, the number one thing that I always saw at shows was that when people were wanting to show off their collection, half the time they wouldn't even load CAF. They'd go to their photos on their phone, right? So
Right.
on the app, when you're logged into it, your avatar is sitting up right at the top of the screen. So you just click that and it takes you right into your CAF gallery.
Well,
So
I'm going to do that
you
now.
got to download it. It's for Android and iOS, of course. So but that's why we did it. I mean, honestly, it's like I was so tired of people like opening their phone and going to their photos and fumbling through all that. And so yeah, if it does it does a lot of things a lot easier because now you can just take photographs through the app and post to your CAF gallery. And you can resize them, color correct the images and stuff. And
Wow.
since yeah, I mean, you might like it.
Well, look, I'm surprised that Marcus and especially Alberto left me hanging. Yeah, how are you going to keep that a secret? Nobody tells me anything.
Yeah, I don't know. Alberto likes to keep a few secrets, I think, but Marcus, he usually no, he doesn't keep any secrets, but it is free, Marcus. You know that. But anyways, yeah, it's to all of us who've struggled with CAF for the last 23 years, because it wasn't mobile friendly. I mean, it really makes the site a different experience. It's all gallery side too. We haven't integrated like the art for sale stuff in it. That's in the next version, but it's all about browsing people's galleries, and I think you'll enjoy it.
So
It
yeah, I will.
definitely has
I'll download it tonight.
it's made me a believer. There's so long I felt I didn't need it. CAF never needed an app, but no, I was a fool. All right, well, let's see. We got three Brad Green pieces in, and the next one is by Brad. And I thought the colors on this one again. He just has a way, man. He's very talented with this. And is it watercolor?
No, these are all done using those markers.
Those Copic markers? Okay.
Yep.
Yeah,
This is
he's
Copic Mark, and this has been this is probably from like 2010 or something like that, or
mhm.
maybe even before that. And you can see the colors, everything lasts. And this was one of my favorite movies, and Brad and I were talking about it. And I said, well, can you do something from this scene? I think that would be pretty cool. And this is what he came up with.
yeah. No, that's very, very nice. Now, what shows were you seeing Brad at?
No, no shows. At
Oh,
the
so this
time,
is you
we
just
just
mailing out your sketchbook.
never met Brad in person. We just did everything through mail and email. I think I talked to him on the phone maybe twice over the years, but everything has always been email. And like I said, to this day, I know he wasn't doing shows back in the day because he told me at the beginning he didn't think he was good enough for show. I said, "Are you kidding me?" I said, "Look at your stuff. You should see some of the other things that I have." I said, "Your stuff is right up there with everybody's."
Hmm.
So, but now and I don't know what he does. I think he does some kind of graphic something for some business or whatever. And I think he's in the Midwest. I think he's out in Ohio, if I remember correctly. And he just never went to any shows. And
I
I used to
mean,
talk to him all the time about it, trying to get him to do it.
I just have to tell you, I'm very, very, very impressed with the idea that so many of your pieces came from you mailing your sketchbook around. I mean, it's
Yep.
to me that was something that I haven't heard a lot of people talk about since 2001, 2002. I mean, that was something that a lot of people did in the late 80s and the 90s, and it was very, very commonplace. But I'm enjoying learning about your experience in the hobby, Ron, just because it's so different than what I think a lot of people are used to hearing. I mean, you're opening up their eyes to different possibilities.
Hey, you got to know the people you're dealing with. And like I said, I do FedEx, so it's signed for. And I
Hmm.
always include a return label. So they just have to box it up and drop it off, and it's ready to go.
Yeah.
I always have to double check to make sure that the book is wrapped in plastic and it comes in. I buy those 2.5 gallon Ziploc bags, which the book fits in nicely. Now, this one, Brad did something different. This one has like actual texture to it. I don't know what he did to the paper, but also he was telling me that with what he wanted to do, he didn't think that he could do it well in the book. And I didn't know what he was talking about, but what he did was he drew this on a separate piece of paper and he glued this on top of one of the pages, blank pages in my book, and you couldn't tell that it didn't belong in there. So, and it worked out great. But he said that he needed to be able to freely move the paper around to be able to get the effects and everything that he wanted.
Hmm.
And hey, he's the expert. I wasn't going to argue with him, but this is what came out of it.
Now, is all of his work in one sketchbook, or because it spanned
No,
years?
it's in a over the years. I think he's in at least four different books, I believe, over the years.
Well, that's awesome. Well, and I think well, he knows what he's doing. If he felt he needed to do it on a different board, to put it in there, he probably was maybe a little worried about the paper being bad. But if he glued it in there and it works, that's awesome, and it's a
Yeah.
really nice piece.
He did a great job. And like I said, it has, when you run your fingers over it, it has like a texture to it.
Now, this is
Now,
artist Dave Ryan.
Dave Ryan. Now, I've known Dave for a long time, and he does a lot of independent comic books over the years. We got to be friends, and I love his style. And he's one of these guys that he believes if you're not practicing every day, then you're never going to be great. And he practices every day, and his attention to detail. When Prince passed away, I had him do a Purple Rain drawing. He recreated the cover from Purple Rain poster in my sketchbook. When Muhammad Ali passed away, he recreated the scene where Muhammad Ali is standing over Sonny Liston laying on the canvas in that pose.
Hmm.
And you can see behind him, it looks like you can see all of the flashes going off in the crowd. He did all of that. When Chadwick Boseman died, I sent him a photo of Chadwick from a magazine. He recreated that photograph in my sketchbook down to the design of the sports coat that Chadwick was wearing. So Dave is a great artist. He's a good friend, and I just love his work. And these were some of the more interesting pieces that he's done. I think I've got sketch covers and loose art and sketchbook stuff.
I'm curious, and Peter asked, like, have you had any bad commission experiences? We talked about that one before, but with when you're sending out your, the sketchbooks in the mail, and it sounds like sometimes you're even putting in a label for it to go to the next artist. But how do you handle payment? Do you typically pay up front? I mean, do you kind of base that on what the artist wants, or do you have kind of a rule that you follow when you're sending out your sketchbook like this?
It depends on what the artist wants, but like I said, I've known these guys for a long time. So
Hmm.
sometimes they'll like the two guys. I try to pay up front. If I wait till they get the book, they have it in hand, and then I pay them their money. I don't want them waiting, and then I don't want them to have an excuse not to send my book back because I didn't pay them. But people know that I'm going to pay them because I'm not going to leave my book with them. So, it's a sketchbook. It's not a loose piece of art that well, I'll get to you when I get to you. So it's not like that. But I pay them up front. I pay them through PayPal, which I have a record of. So I know, and when I make the payment in the comments, I say in the comments what the payment is for, sketchbook, sketch cover, whatever it is, and by this artist, color, not color, and I keep spreadsheets of everything. Like who did what, and did I pay them or not, and did they send it back, and so I can keep records of everything. But now, and Dave, I've known for a long time. When he has some interesting stuff he's done, he'll just sit around and do some things. Say, hey, Ron, I've got some sketch covers, or I have some work. Maybe you'd be interested in. And a lot of times, I get first crack at stuff, and I'm very grateful for that treatment. Because look at his take on the. I knew this was the dead man. I don't know the dead man's story, but I know what he looks like, and I like his take on this particular character.
So did you ask for Dead Man in this case? I mean,
Yeah, well, he had
Peter
he
had
had
you
already
mentioned.
he had already done it.
Uh-huh.
He had did drawing. He says, "Look, I'm thinking about doing this, 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 and this. Are you interested in these characters?" Sure. So when he does them, he said, "Well, when I'm finished, I'll reach out to you and I'll let you know and let you see what you have. And if you want them, then you can have them." I said,
Mhm.
"Okay, no problem." This was one of the ones that he had done like on his spare time.
That's very nice. I do like the texture on his costume there. So this is another piece by Dave. This is a sketch cover, of course.
Yes, this is a sketch cover. And Silver Surfers was one of I don't know his full origin, but I have a statue of the Silver Surfer that I bought for their like anniversary many years ago. And Dave and I always talked about that statue, and this is what he when he came up with this. I said it fits. And the way it looks when you see it in person, that figure actually looks like it's made of metal. That with his colors and everything that he's used, but it actually looks like it shines and jumps right off the page.
Yeah, and this is like ink wash and paint. I mean, it's
Yeah,
very
he
nicely done.
yeah he does multiple different things, and Hey, I stopped asking people, if they're going to do pencil. Where I have one, that I swear, I think the guy did it in crayon, but it came out fantastic. So I don't question anything anymore.
Right. Yeah. No. Well, hey, mixed media is how you got to classify it, but as long as it looks great, it doesn't matter, right? But no, this is really nice. I like Dave's work as well.
And
And
this is one he did last year when there was the rumor that Keanu Reeves was going to be the new Ghost Rider. So he
mhm.
just did it. He called me up. He said, "I know you like Ghost Rider." He said, "What do you think?" And I jumped on this one right away. But this is a sketch cover.
Yeah,
Look at the
it's cool.
detail.
And again, have you ever met him
Oh,
in
Dave,
person?
yes. Yeah,
Yep.
Dave, I've known for years and I have met him. We've hung out many times. He lives in New Jersey. Um, I'm originally from New Jersey, but we met at several shows. They used to have the East Coast Comic Con,
Hmm.
and Dave was one of the ones that helped put on that show. So we used to meet up there all the time. And he was the one, Dave actually introduced me to Rudy Nebres because he's in New Jersey. And I was able to get some sketchbook commissions and some loose art from Rudy based on Dave's introduction to myself, to Rudy and his wife. Have you ever met Rudy Nebres?
I have not. I've long admired his work.
Well, let me tell you something. The important thing about Rudy and his wife are not even 5 foot tall.
I've seen photos.
And you see them, and it's but they're the best people. And he'd give me a price on something, and I'd pester Rudy, and tell him, "Look, Rudy, don't make me. My wife's going to make me sleep in the yard. I got to eat dog food. Don't make it, Rudy. This is all going to be your fault." And he'd laugh, and his wife would laugh, and finally he'd give me a good price. He just to make me leave his table. But but Rudy's a great guy, and his artwork, again, certain artists, when you see their work, it kind of resonates with you, and his stuff really resonated with me. And as far as I know, Rudy's got to be close to 90 now, and as far as I know, he's still drawing.
Hmm. Yeah, no, I believe so. I think I remember I saw something with Anthony. I think he had Rudy at the warehouse or something like that, sometime early in the new year. But yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, why not, right? Draw until you drop.
Yep.
Well, here we'll switch over but this is another one from Dave. You get
Now, Dave, there was another artist. He needed some money, and he was one of Dave's friends. His name was Joe Martino.
okay.
And Joe did the pencils, kind of.
Uh,
But then Dave went in and straightened out the pencils, and then he went in and did his thing. But I wanted Joe to be part of it and gave him some bucks. But pretty much Dave went in and just redid everything and just did it. But I thought, based on the new Fantastic Four movie coming out, I thought this would be a good piece to add in.
no, well, it's a perfect one. Stingray says he plans to collect art till he drops. I think there's another hashtag in there, Stingray. We need to make a note of that. Future T-shirt, collect till I drop is that to go along with all the other ones that we've come up with here on the show. Oh, Dave Ryan, did you like how I animated this on the start of the show?
Yeah, I did. I
Did
like
you
that.
see that?
Now, again, this was a white piece of paper, and Dave went in and did all of the background. And I think he used like Sharpie or something black or whatever, because you can tell. But
Right.
he went and did everything by hand. I was not expecting this when we talked about him doing this. Is a sketchbook commission, by the way.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, very nice. Dave does great work.
Now, this guy, Chris, I met him at the Virginia Comic Con, I don't know, maybe about 6, 7 years ago. Young guy, and I don't know how much of professional work, if anything. And we were sitting around talking, and I asked him about, we try to come up with some concepts, and I saw where he had drawn poison ivy, but I combined his poison ivy drawing with the plant monster from Little Shop of Horrors, and had him add that in the back. He worked on this thing throughout the day because I gave it to him on a Saturday, and he wasn't finished. He worked on it. They were packing up everything on Sunday. When he finally finished this thing, I had to sit around with a little hair dryer to make sure it was dry because he used markers. But over the years, he's done a few commissions for me through the mail. Nice guy. A couple years back, I called him to do a commission, and he told me that he didn't think that he would be able to do it. And we got to talking, and now I don't know his condition because we haven't talked in the last couple of years. But he developed MS,
Hmm.
and he was pretty sure that he wouldn't be able to draw again. And nice
That's
guy.
unfortunate.
You know, you hate to see this kind of thing happen to good people, and you can see his skill set. And I think I gave another piece that he did because he did two Incredibles piece for me. I think I included the second one that he did for me, but that was the last one he was able to do. This one, the game night with the Incredibles, and we talked about it, and he came up with the concept, and this is what came out, and this is in my sketchbook. And when I reached out to him, when I got the next volume, and that's when he told me that he didn't think that he would be able to draw anymore because his hands were shaking so much that he couldn't
Right.
do it. Well, excuse me, MS or Parkinson's. I think maybe Parkinson's. No, but he didn't
A
think
very
he did.
talented guy. That's unfortunate. Yeah, that's really nice. And
Because
that
I
was,
love the
was this his idea to do The Incredibles?
yes, yes.
Yeah.
We he did an Incredibles for me, and I think it's in my gallery under his name because it's in one of my sketchbooks. But he did an original Incredibles, and when the second Incredibles movie came out, I went to him and I said, "Hey, you did the first one. Can you? What do you want to do?" He said, "Yeah, I've got this concept that I've been thinking about for a while about game night with it." I said, "Hey, man, put it on paper. Just put it on paper. I trust you." And this is what he came up with. Now, if you go to the gallery and look up his name, you'll see the first one if you want to step out and do that. But I miss him. He's a great guy. And it's a shame this
Hmm.
kind of thing happens to good people.
So true. Well, at least you have, some great pieces of art from him and some clearly, some had some great conversations, and he's clearly really talented.
And like I said, he hadn't done any. I don't think at this point he had done any published stuff, but he I reached out to him to send him the thing about the interview tonight, but I don't know if he's even capable of doing anything like that anymore.
Well, uh, very nice work. So what's, oh, heavy metal, Tarna, Chris Ivy. You talked about
Yes.
Chris Ivy earlier.
Now, Chris, I met at Baltimore. He was um, he was down on his luck, and somebody the guy that runs Baltimore had given him a table so he could get some work, and so I came to him and he did a Thanos drawing for me, and I paid him a little bit more, and a lot of guys went up and got him to do some work and try to help him get back on his feet. The next year or so, I brought the book back because it was finished. The sketchbook was finished, and I brought him back to his Thanos book drawing. He said, "This is great." He said, "But I see everybody else is doing color in here." He said, "I didn't do color." So he had this stuff. It was a marker. No, excuse me, they were colored pencils, it looked like. And you colored it and everything, but then you added water to what you did in pencils and it turned it into watercolor.
Mhm.
So he went back in and colored the original piece he did, and he wouldn't take any money for it. So when I got my heavy metal sketch covers, I reached out to Chris and I said, "Look, I've got this thing. You're one of the guys that I want to do a cover. Do you have a favorite character or a favorite scene from the movie?" He said, "I got you covered." And this is what he did.
Yeah, he chose wisely, I think. Yeah, that was, well, there's a lot of many scenes you could pick from that movie, though.
Yeah, over the years, I've got several heavy metal loose drawings. I've got commission work. I've sketchbook covers. I've got in my sketchbooks. I've done different scenes from different. One of the artists that's coming up, his name is Chris Mad. He did the scene where Hanover Fist was chasing Captain Stern through the spaceship, tearing through walls. He did that in as a drawing for me. So I've always loved that original movie, Heavy Metal.
That one turned out really nice. And oh, here's
Yeah,
the Ivy, piece you were talking about.
right.
16,800 views in your CAF gallery. Number
So I
one.
was concerned about this because we were looking at different pictures. He's a big martial arts fan, and
Mhm.
I'm a Bruce Lee fan, and we were talking, and I couldn't figure out because when you see the scene in the movie, Bruce Lee's actually turned the other way, so you're looking at his back, and he's kicking with his other leg at Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. So I was like, "Well, you're not going to see his face. How are you going?" He said, "No, I got a plan. I can do this." And he turned the character around to where you could see them both, So, hey, he worked it out, and this is, I think, my most viewed piece in my gallery.
Yes, it is. Well, the cool thing about CAF is once it gets indexed on Google, anybody who's a fan of the movie,
Mhm.
Bruce Lee, Kareem, at the end of the day, CAF brings in a lot of people who don't even know what comic art is, right? But they get to see an image that's related to something that they appreciate outside of comics and art. And yeah, I mean, it's surprising how much traffic comes through search engines to CAF, because it's not always going to be art related. Somebody's just looking for something about Superman or something, and you end up on CAF. I think more than 4,000 people a day end up on the site just from Google searches, right? It's crazy.
I've gone to Chris over the years. We've kept in touch, and he does some commissions for me every now and then. And he comes up with some pretty good ideas. Well, like I said, we talk about things, and he'll come up with a concept, and I say, "Hey, it sounds good to me. Run with it." Especially if the artist is excited about it, you're excited about it. It reflects in their work.
Well, you should let Chris know that he's got the number one, and it may be the number one piece by him on the website. You never know. Like total
Yeah,
view.
could be.
Uh, Maybe I'll do some searches while we're talking here to find out. But this is
This
Chris Mad.
Yeah, Chris Mad. I met him, I don't know, about 10 years ago. He had a picture, a drawing that he had done of Lobo on a motorcycle. And I thought it was the coolest thing that I'd ever seen. And we've kept in touch over the years, different commissions and things. And he just gets better and better and better at what he's doing. His concept and his skill set is amazing.
Yeah.
But this was after Into the Spider Verse came out, and he
Mhm.
said he wanted to do the heavy metal Spider Man. I said, "Hey, let's go with it."
Well, just so you know, that piece by Chris is the most viewed on CAF by far. I,
Really?
there's
Yeah.
Poison Ivy. No, that's not even that one's. Let's see. What is the next Chris Ivy? Oh, it's a like a cover recreation in for Avengers 6.
Hmm.
So yeah, you can let him know that you own the most viewed piece on CAF by him.
I tell him that every time I see him, he always smiles about that. Look at the detail on this.
Yeah, I thought this one was pretty slick. I'm a huge horror fan, so I thought the work, the detail on here was really nice. And it's sketch cover too, right?
Yes, this is a sketch cover.
Let's see, and another one.
Yep.
Yeah,
We were talking about, I gave him a blank, and this is what he wanted because when Nick started producing these new Hercules books and things like that. So I asked him if he would do something. He said, "Yeah, I'm bringing some stuff to the show. Just come over to my table. I'll show you what I have." And this was one of the things that he created.
very nice. Now, I mean, how often do you pick up pre-drawn pieces?
Well, um, if I go to the show and they've already got some stuff done,
Mhm.
then I want to support the artists that I really get along with and like, and I love their work. So I'll get at least one thing, two things that's already been done in case I don't get a chance to come back to them, you know?
Sure.
So, but with Chris, I mean, I'll get a couple of things that he's done, but also leave my sketchbook with him. He'll tell me whether he can do something during the day or overnight or something at the hotel, and we'll work it out, or he'll have to ship the book back to me. But at least I know I've supported their work, while they were there.
Hmm.
But they know what I like, and he comes with a pretty good assortment of stuff that he knows that his regular customers would like.
Yeah, well, that's I love the colors on this one. And
I'm a
then
big
Gunslinger
Western
Spawn.
fan. I'm a big Western fan, so he's done a few pieces of Gunslinger Spawn for me. But this one he did in my sketchbook.
Another nice piece. Yep. Peter says you're a true patron of the arts, Ron.
I like the art, and I know it's a struggle for some of these artists. Especially the ones that don't have the really big names, and they're grinding it out, going from show to show to show, and I like to show support. And this is Ariel Diaz. And this was through, was it 4C Comics? They had the thing where the weekend where they had different artists and you make a claim, and I got picked, and I was able to get her to, is this Ariel?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Ariel Diaz.
So
Yep.
it took me 2 days to finally win a slot to get her to draw something. So because when I saw her work, I said, man, I got to get something. I didn't know who she was, and then after that, she really started getting published stuff and everything. So now I probably couldn't touch a piece of her art, but for this, I just loved her work.
Awesome. Yeah, Ken does is that the show he does like twice a year, I think, where he has like a
Yeah,
whole
yeah.
weekend of
It, it was
artists
a
coming
whole
in.
weekend, and I think during this show, they had the artists from Japan. So I got
Oh,
some stuff
Yoshi's crew.
right. So I was able to get some stuff from over there too.
Sketch-a-thon. Yeah, no, I've only caught a little bit of those, but I'm on the PR list, so I know when they happen. I haven't been able to actually sit the whole weekend and see which artists he brings on and stuff. But I know he's had a good list. I think Stan Sakai has popped into a few of
Oh
those
yeah,
over time.
yeah. And he used to have Sergio Argones. I bought some things from Sergio that he's drawn. Now, this lady, Bet Rodriguez, she's in Brazil, and she was also one that I saw on eBay. I bought a piece from her, and I reached out to her, and of course, I don't send my sketchbook, because it's never going to survive customs. It's just not going to. But
No.
I come up with different themes or TV shows and things that I like, and Bet and I talk about it, and she comes up. It was funny. I couldn't even remember the name of this show, and I was trying to describe the characters. She said, "I think I know that one." She said, "What, the G-Force people?" And no, she said, "Battle for Planets." And I said, "No, that's not the name of it. It's like G something." He said, "No, it's Battle for Planet." We argued back and forth. Finally, I had to look it up. I said, "Okay, I'm sorry. You're right." And then this is what she came up with. She asked me, and then, well, which iteration, which year? I said, look, don't drag me down that hole. I don't know. I just know I thought the characters was cool, and that's what she came up with.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And yeah, like Peter said, Rich Cirillo's a big fan, so he would appreciate seeing something like this.
And now this one, Mark Muller, Eric Muller. I've been dealing with him for a lot. He is fantastic with his work. And when he did this, now this was not a commission for me. It was one of the things he had drawn to bring to Baltimore the year that this was the 50th anniversary of Star Trek. And believe it or not, no one would buy this piece because if you notice, there's no checkoff on here. And people were pissed that it was no checkoff, but I didn't know this, but he told me that the first season of Star Trek, there was checkoff wasn't on the show. So that's why he wasn't in the 50th anniversary because he wasn't there during that first season. And I said, well, their loss, I'll take it. So we negotiated, got a good price, and I bought it from him. But I've got a lot of pieces from him. He's done various things in my sketchbooks. So I'm very happy. And I had an idea for a commission. I wanted him to do, and I believe it's on here. I wanted him to do a Twilight Zone piece because I've always loved that show. And we talked about it. I pulled up what was the top episodes and different lists, and I gave them to him. And he started to work on it. But what happened? Eric developed carpal tunnel in both wrists, and he had to have surgery. He didn't even know if he was ever going to be able to complete. But when he healed, he called me up. He says, "Okay, I'm ready to jump on this Twilight Zone thing." And he did it, and it looks like it's pencil, but all of these pieces are pen and ink.
Wow. I mean, the detail in these pieces is pretty
He's
amazing.
very photorealistic about his stuff.
Yeah, very talented. I did give spoilers. I'm sorry. I
Oh, that's all right.
wanted to zoom in and I clicked too far to the right.
And people are like, well, what was that? Wait a minute, hold
Yep.
on.
Yep. Sorry, everybody. There you go.
Now,
This is the one you
if
were just
you
talking about.
he took there's 16 different episodes on this page. And anybody that knows that show, you can pick out each one of them because his drawings are so clear and so precise. And when he did it, he finished it. He brought it to Baltimore on a Friday. He said, "Okay, I got to do a couple tweaks." He says, "But if you don't mind," he said, "I really would like for you to leave it at my table, so it kind of brings people around." I said, "So long as you're not tempted to sell it to anybody," I said, "everything is cool. We could do that." And I left it.
Mhm.
It brought a lot of people to his table because everybody was a fan of this show, would show up and they would tell other people, "Come to the table. You got to see this piece." But 16 different episodes he was able to get on this page. This is 11 by 17.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Hmm. Yeah, no, he's very talented. I'm just looking at the inking techniques alone. He's very masterful. Hmm. Yeah. Oh, very cool. There we go.
And this guy, he's a young guy. He's very much into horror and martial arts and stuff. And he goes by Bobby Lex, and he's an excellent artist. And I had him do a couple of horror related things, and he came up to me and he said, "Look, I got this idea about Chucky and his bride," and I said, "Sold." And he says, "Well, you don't even." I said, "No, look, I trust you." And he's another artist that was trying to make some money, and I don't take advantage of people like that, and we make a good fair deal. And I always usually give them a little extra because they're struggling. But I'm very happy with this piece. He tried to give it to me for free, and I wouldn't take. I No, I had to pay him.
Well, it's back to you being a good patron to the artists that you've got good relationships with.
And this guy, he holds black belts in 7 different disciplines. He's a martial arts instructor and everything. And we just went to his promotion ceremony to his 7th degree, and he met him at a show. He had some big pieces, and these pieces are like 18 by something. I mean, they're 18 by 24 or something like that.
Mhm.
These are large pieces, and they're all pen and ink. And I saw a couple of his pieces, and I bought them. And he said, "I have some more stuff." So we would meet at a Starbucks and talk, and he would bring art, and I could buy something. And I have quite a few of his pieces over the years. He did talk him into going to Baltimore, and I think it was like 4 years ago, 3 years ago, he did his first show, and he's been going to Baltimore and going to more shows, and he's been pretty successful. Now, one of his pieces, I don't think that I loaded it up for this, but he did a medieval Spawn piece, and I actually sent it to Daniel Govar to do the painting and color it in watercolor. It came out
How'd it turn
fantastic.
out?
It came fantastic,
Is it in your
fantastic.
app?
No, I'm not sure. if that is. But I was struggling last night trying to get these things up, and I almost included it, and I did because I had other things by Daniel Govar that I wanted to show, so I didn't put it in there. And of
Well,
course,
speaking of Daniel
yeah,
Govar right here.
watercolor. He was one of the guys that talked me into doing. Now, this is not a sketchbook commission, but a commission nonetheless. And this is all watercolor. But he was the one that talked me into if I was going to do another sketchbook to put watercolor paper in it. So he could do him and Tony Moy, and there's a few others that wanted to do watercolor. And Miles Wall, who's later on, he actually did a sketch cover for me that's painted in acrylic. And then he says, I think I have a way to put an acrylic painting in your sketchbook. I said, all right, let's do that. But this is fantastic. I mean, I didn't know the story behind the Batman Who Laughs, but I just thought the imagery was cool.
No, definitely. I like Daniel's work a lot. Really nice guy. And yeah, he's just very, very talented. Got to see him at Heroes
Yeah.
past a couple weeks ago.
Now,
And
this is a piece that Daniel and I talked about quite a bit because I've always loved the history behind Joan of Arc. And he said that, I've got it because we talked about the scene from the movie, the original movie, Joan of Arc, where she's in the chapel before this battle and she's praying to God for a successful battle. And I thought that that would be a good scene to capture, but the angle, how you're going to do it. And Daniel is very precise about lighting and everything. He studies all of that. And he says, I think I figured it out. The work on that, the stained glass in back of her, the sunlight coming in and hitting her armor and everything, it was very, very precise. And I just love this piece.
yeah, that's gorgeous. Yeah, Daniel brings a lot of pre-done pieces with him to the show, but you always see how busy he is, right? Because he's always painting. People love
Oh,
his
yeah.
pens, and so even though he brings a lot of work that he did in advance, he always has a lot of people coming up to him for commissions during a con.
Zealot and Grifter. Again, I don't know their stories, but I knew the characters and I liked the imagery behind it. And Dan is a big fan of that comic book.
Yeah, Alberta wants to know if you're going to be making it to OAX next February.
I'm going to try to,
Yeah, that's we got a good
but
line.
I had just come back from an 11-day cruise in that December, so I couldn't swing going back and doing the OAX in January.
Well, since you're such good friends with Zach, you should reach out to him for us.
The last time I spoke to him, he told me about his plans, and because his mother was elderly, and I think she passed away.
Hmm.
And he said after that he was going to spend time in his wife's country in the Philippines, and he was going to be there for an
He's
extended period.
happily retired right now.
Right?
Yeah.
He said he
Uh,
didn't know if he was going to come back.
hey, I don't
So,
blame him. He's the favorite artist of many many collectors, right? But when you're done, you're done. I think that he still does some shows. I think he was in the Philippines, maybe. I can't remember which. There's a couple shows he's been to, but I don't think he draws. He signs. Fans there love having him there. So that's the only way you're going to see Zach. I wish if we'd started our show a little bit earlier, maybe we could add him as a guest when he was here in Orlando.
well, he hadn't done any Comic Cons in like 30 years or something like that. When he finally, he's friends with the guy that does the Heroes Con, and Sheldon talked him into doing their anniversary because he wanted to get the original artist that came to their first show back on,
Mhm.
and he came, and he realized how popular he was. I mean, his line did like crazy designs through the place. They had to keep moving people, and he signed everything. And then finally, it got to the point where he had to limit because people were bringing whole long boxes full of stuff for him to sign. They
Right.
didn't care that they had to pay for it. He didn't care, but he said that was one of the things that turned him off from doing shows in the first place, is because he never had a chance to get up and walk around and see stuff or talk to people because he was a lot.
It's trouble
And
being so popular. Yeah, we had
yeah,
him at Big Wow once. It might have been
mhm.
like 2016 or something, but yeah, he always had a line. I mean, I got to say hi to him when he was just getting set up and setting down, getting ready for his show, and I don't think I talked to him after that because he always had a line. But
But he and I
yeah,
told him, I said, you've got that name where you can dictate what you do, how long you sit at the table, and get to be able to walk around and have lunch or whatever. You can do that. And but once he started at that convention, he was nonstop for years, and he said he got burnt out again. Now this is David Newbold, another local artist. Um, he did this one. I saw the piece that he had did second first, and I loved this piece. And he agreed to. This was a loose piece that I bought. This next one I think is in my sketchbook, Mr. Miracle. But this, his imagery and the power and the motion behind what he's doing, I thought it was cool. Iron Fist versus Iron Man. I mean, come on, you got to go with that.
I think Iron Fist is getting the
Yeah.
better of him.
So this I didn't even know who Mr. Miracle was. So I wanted to do that. Now it's funny about this. Years ago, when they did the very first Awesome Con in DC,
Hmm.
I'm going through, and they were in a little small room, and there was a little guy there. He was very quiet. He didn't have any artwork or anything, and he was sitting there. And he had a bunch of hardback books piled up on the table. And I went over and he started talking about his book, and people were, just passing him by. He started talking about his book, and I thought the concept was cool, and it was called, the name of the book was Crowded Skies, and it was, I think, Tom King. And I said, and we started talking, and he was telling me that he was a retired CIA agent, and we started talking, counter intel stuff, and I bought several of his books. And I came back the next day and I bought a couple more. Came back the next day, all of his books had sold. He was just sitting there. He had one copy of the book left on his table. And then
Wasn't
I
selling
think,
that one, right?
right, he
He
said,
had
I
to have
gotta, he said,
something
I
on his
gotta show
table.
somebody, what it looks like. But then the next year he got a job writing a Batman story. And then his career took off from there. So now he calls me the collector. I show up in my bags and my stuff rolling around, and he comes. So what he'll do is he's got a big long line. He'll stop his line so he can get up and come over and talk to me and shake my hand. So the people just hate me. They've been standing in that line for hours, and he just gets up and leaves the line. If they could just kill me, they would. But he is a great guy, and he's extremely talented, and I'm proud to see where he went to, from that first table with those books. And there was talks about turning that first book into a movie, but I don't know whatever happened with that.
Very cool. Hey, and I gotta tell you, I do actually have a piece by Neverus. I forgot about that. I picked up a Thor, the I don't even know what, I think I got it off eBay. No, it wouldn't have been eBay. I don't know where I got it from, but I got it like 3 years ago. It's awesome. I mean, Rudy's
Yeah,
colors like so vibrant, right? He's just you could see a piece from like 12 feet away and know it's a piece by him just by the color scheme that he uses and kind of the ink work. It.
he does a great job. This is, I believe, Lance.
Elizabeth, isn't she's
No,
on CAF, right? I
who's
think
this?
the CAF Gallery, if I'm not mistaken. I see her work. She
Oh,
posts a piece,
Elizabeth
like one
Yan.
piece a month. Yeah.
Yeah. Now she was. I found her on. It was either CAF or on eBay, and I reached
Mhm.
out to her. And she was traveling at the time. I think she's. I don't know what country she's actually from, but she was in Serbia or somewhere like that. And I reached out to her to get some of her work. And now, I can get through her Instagram or send her an email and say, what you got going on, or, what you got working, or any ideas or stuff. So I bought several pieces for her, but I love her style. She does the female form and like warriors, like nobody's business. Her stuff is it just seems like it jumps off the page.
Oh yeah, no, she is a very kind of lush style. I mean, similar. It reminds me a little bit of like Ray Lago's painted work. back, like 20 years ago. It has that kind of just flair to it, but it stands out. I mean, whenever I see a post of hers on CAF, I always have to look at it because I like her work a lot, and I don't know hardly anything about her, but and I think she only has literally like 25 pieces in her CAF gallery because she really only posts one a month or something. But they're all fantastic.
I tried to talk to her once because I wanted to discuss an idea with her. She told me, she said, we need to stick to emails and stuff because her English wasn't very good. She said, I'm not able to not fully understand what you're saying. So we just stick to emails. Now, this piece is the artist's name is Eric Diaz. He's out of Brazil. He's another one. He's not too far from, I guess, where Bet is. But he's done a lot of work for me, and we came up with this concept in my book. This is a 2-page spread. So, Wizard of Oz. So I wanted a comparison piece. So I don't know if you were able to show them both together, but I had him do the Good Witch on one page, and then right next to it is the Wicked Witch. And if you could see the concept of the colors, and when you get to the Wicked Witch, and even the border is evil around her. So he really did a great. He came up with the concept, and I bought these two pieces for him. But like I said, I wish that I could have got this in my sketchbook, but I can't send the book outside the country.
Hmm.
But he was able to do this for me. And both pages, I think these are 12 by 16, 12 by 16 and a half.
Yeah, they came out great. Seeing them side, but I wish I could show them, that way. But I mean, we get the idea. That is pretty cool. Congrats. You got a lot of great stuff here, man. I mean, we already knew that, but you're affirming for all of us that you got some great stuff. Now, I recognize this. This is Robbie Amore.
Robbie, yeah, and I'm a big, huge movie fan. When I saw he did one for I forget Star Trek or Star Wars or something he did, and I liked his style, so I
Hmm.
bought a few pieces from him based on different movies. This is Sandman.
Yeah, he has a great, uh, just an eye for composition, and he loves the film poster masters, like Struzan, for instance. I mean, he he would be great doing that for a living because he has such a great attention to detail. One of my daughter's favorite mystery sketches was by him of the film version of Doctor Strange because he
Yeah,
just the likeness sounds so perfect. And
it,
we were actually just looking at it the past weekend, and it's just, yeah, Robbie's good. And I know you've got a few pieces by him, right? I think
and
there
yeah, and I do. But I can see him doing movie posters and things like that because his
Mhm.
style just is perfect for that. And this is another piece, the Hellboy. I mean, look at that. I mean, you get a good sense of the movie from looking at this work.
Yeah, I love his pencil work. Very detailed. There we go. Nice. And he keeps the paper clean.
Yes. Yes, that
No
is
smudges
exactly
or
right.
anything anywhere.
No smudges.
Now, were these, like pre-done pieces that you ordered through Next Comic Art, or just
This one I had done, and I picked this one up, I think at OAX, the first one.
okay,
Yeah, I ordered it and they delivered it there.
nice.
Again, I'm a big Western fan, and you gotta get when you find an artist that can really do a Western piece well, you gotta put Gunslinger Spawn in there.
Mhm. Great bell buckles to hold his guns. And then another one by Robbie. Was this on like a claim show? It looks familiar.
No, well, this was my wife. One of our favorite shows was The Mandalorian,
Mhm.
and in season two, this character was on a quill, and Nick, shit, I just what is his name? Nick Nolte did the voice. And my wife loved this character because, he'd finish an argument. He says, "I have spoken."
Yes.
So Marilyn would take the Mandalorian credo, "This is the way," and she would put them together. So when she was yelling at me, she said, "This is the way. I have spoken."
Hmm.
So I had Robbie do this piece for me, and Sideshow has this statue, this little blurb thing, and him, and I bought them together as a set, and I have it on a table near where this piece is, posed just like his artwork. So people come in and look at it and say, "God, that's an ugly thing sitting there looking." But I love it. And it took me 2 hours to get him posed on that horse with the guns and everything, all of the right armament to match this drawing to remember her.
Wow. I mean, that's great, man. I mean, being able to share the hobby with your spouse, or friends, family, it's one of the best things about it. Like I say, I've picked up art for my kids and for Maureen, and I totally get it. But that's wonderful. I'm sure she was really, appreciative of, I mean, just the idea that, I mean, so this piece, so you commissioned him for this, right? I mean,
Right. I
that,
did.
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
And I did. And that blurb thing sits, the statue's pretty large because the blurb thing itself stands about maybe 14 inches tall. It's pretty big. And then he's on top, but
It
it's
is a
sitting on the table.
conversation piece in the
It
house,
is
that's
look,
for
and some kids are coming. That thing is looking at me. So, and I said, if you get close, it's going to bite you. So they leave it alone. They give this statue a pretty wide berth. Usually, kids are just touching everything, but nobody wants to touch
not
this thing.
that. Oh, man. And it was a sideshow statue, you
Yeah, it
said?
was a sideshow piece.
They make
And I
great,
bought the
great
because they had
statues.
they had you can buy the blurg and you can buy him, but you can buy the exclusive thing together. And with the different heads, it came up with different weapons and all kinds of stuff. So yeah, and I was very once I got the statue, then I commissioned Robbie and I sent him a picture of the statue and I said, "This is what I could you do something with this?" And he said yes. And this is what he came up with.
I love it. Wow, congrats. I mean, that's really nice. Oh, another one by Robbie. I didn't see this
Yeah.
one when I was looking at the slides earlier. Yeah,
This was
he's
one
he's
when they
good.
did the force. No, this was from the CAF Live thing. And
Oh, right.
when
Uh-huh.
they were doing one of the pieces, because I found this and I bid on it, and I ended up getting it.
Oh, during their show, like on Saturday night that we would do?
No, um, was it 4C or was it CAF on your? When you put in, they was have the different work. No, it was 4C, and this was something that came up, and I put a bid in on it, and I won
Hmm.
it.
Yeah, we don't do a lot
But
of auctions with
no,
Next, but
but
when
no, but when you had the CAF live and
Mhm.
people posted, this is the price they were for. Sometimes you can negotiate, but it
Yep.
had in different categories. But I saw this piece and it wasn't a whole lot to it, but the expression, the lines on the face, and everything, it just spoke to me because how realistic the face, the pose, and everything looked.
No, I agree. That's wonderful. I have a couple pieces by Robbie too. I've always really respected his work. So yeah, he and his brother. I really like their both
Yeah.
their work a lot. And then here's another Next comic art crew.
Now, when I bought my first piece from him, it was through, I think it was on eBay.
Huh.
And I was, then I was great when I saw Force. I mean, Next Comics had the guy. I was like, I know that guy. And so I was able to get some pieces from him. And I think I bought a piece that they also delivered at OAX. But I like this one because I bought this one. I bought a pair. It was uh, Spider-Man 2099, and also he did one for the Blue Beetle, and I bought both of those.
Right. This is Jim Jimenez. I'm
Right.
sure everybody recognizes his work. I mean, he's been wowing us with his mystery sketches from the very beginning when we started him, and then just getting to meet him at he was at the last OAX. That was the first time I got to meet him, And yeah, I really like his work. I love his black and white work, and he's been doing a lot more work in color these days. But
He did a Werewolf by Night piece for me.
oh yeah, is that in the set? I don't remember.
I don't think it is, but
Okay.
no, this one, Spider-Man Noir, because I bought the sideshow piece, exclusive piece of Spider-Man Noir. It stands about 30 inches tall. It's pretty big, and because I don't know, it just when he was the only black and white piece, a black and white character in the Spider-Man verse. And you get Nick Cage doing that voice. He just seemed like the old Humphrey Bogart kind of, film noir kind of thing. And I love those movies, so I had to have that piece. And then I bought the statue after when the statue came out. I said, "Oh, I gotta have it." Now you pay extra for the exclusive version, and the difference is the head. They call the portrait. One is the typical one with his hat on and everything. The other, he's battle damaged. There's no hat. His mask is half torn off and stuff. But I like the original posed with the fedora.
Yeah, that's nice. So I'm beginning to think you have a large house with the statues and
Well, you would think. I guess it's large by some people's standards, but it's not nearly large enough to contain all the stuff that I have. Yeah, but I
so
guess
I have to ask
collecting is
you,
part
with
of the
all those
journey.
sketch covers you have, do you keep them in long boxes? Because you have
Yeah,
like
I do.
800 of them, so
Yeah,
and
I do.
probably
They're in
more.
Lombard. I had a bunch of signed comic books and things like that, but I sold a bunch of those to Nick after my wife passed because I just didn't have the room for them, and
Hmm.
I didn't know what most of the covers, what the comics were even about. But I had a bunch of them, and if they could sell them to somebody else, that'd be great. But the statues, I mean, and when I first started with the statues, they were like little 7-inch statues, then it was 12-inch statues, then it was 16-inch statues, and the damn things get pretty big. I think I'm looking at Blade that I have. Blade must weigh 30 pounds, and the thing is, I think, 36 inches tall, and it's heavy. It's just, but you got to do it. I mean, I was a fan of that movie with Wesley Snipes, and I just had to do it. And I've got it framed behind it. There's an original poster from Blade, a sketch cover by Jessica Court of Blade, and Wesley Snipes' Blade autograph photo framed in back of the statue. So I don't know. It just, some things just hit you and you just got to move on them.
Yeah, sorry, I wanted to Google that the the statue with
Nick Nolte.
Mandalorian is just crazy.
Oh
It's
yeah,
so
the man.
I
Did you
can see
see
why
it?
the children. Yeah, I'm looking at
Yeah,
it right
you
now.
could, if you could show people. I mean, it's pretty frightening. Well, I thought it was cool, but
I can see why
everybody
that.
that's seen it going, "Ew, what the hell, man?"
Yeah, I could switch over to a different tab here. It's funny because I can see why that would scare the kids.
And
Yeah,
some adults, it's at the end of this sofa, and they won't sit at that end because it's too close to the statue.
oh man, look at that. I get it. I get it. You know,
And
it's
it's large. I mean, in the photos, you can't really tell how big it is, but it's pretty large.
yeah, this is something you wouldn't want to, like catch in on the end of your fishing rod or anything. This thing is
And
pretty.
it's made of some kind of polystone or something like that, so it's not plastic. It's pretty solid.
Hmm. Wow. Well, yeah, that is awesome. That's very, very cool. Get the collect.
And I
uh,
got the Spider-Man Noir from them, and I think
mhm.
Blade came from them also. So I've been collecting some of those, and it helps. You don't have to pay for them all at one time, and it
Right.
takes 2 years to make the damn things when you order them.
Yeah, that's always been the downside on stuff on their, because you pre-order a lot of stuff with them. It probably helps them figure out how big a run and to make and everything like that. But uh, yeah, the few things I bought through Sideshow, it's always like you wait 8 months, sometimes a year, and that's the only thing that always disappointed about. Yeah, but they always had one of the best setups in San Diego. Because man, you could go up and just they would give you like an exclusive walkthrough and you get to
Hmm.
see all the statues. That was always fun.
Then they tell you, well, it's not available yet. You gotta,
Right.
These are just
exactly.
prototypes. You got to wait. But then it helps that at my age and the fact that I suffer now from CRS, can't remember shit. So, and when the boxes do finally come in, I have no idea what it is. I'm surprised. It's like
What did I
Christmas.
buy?
I have no idea. What I just got a big ass box. What's in it? I'm all excited because I've forgotten what it was.
Yeah, I get it. I was, yeah. See, that's when you know you have a lot, when you can't remember all the things
Yes,
you
that
have.
yeah, that is. And this is another friend of mine. He's a former DC police officer, and he does markers and things. But I love his work, and he is a big Mandalorian and Star Wars fan, an artist. He loves it. So I wanted to make sure I included one of his pieces in here.
Wow, a
His
very nice
name is
likeness there.
Darren Jackson. He doesn't go to Baltimore. I think he goes to Awesome Con. I think he was at Heroes Con this year.
Everybody's feeling
Yeah,
the
I have
CRS.
made CRS.
uh,
I'm trying to get disability for it.
oh man, uh, James Pasco. Somebody,
Yes.
I think a lot of people. He's worked with 4C, I believe, and he's
Yeah.
even done a little bit of restoration work here or there in the hobby.
And I've been dealing with him for a lot of years, and we deal through the mail. I met him at shows and bought different things. He's done sketchbook work for me too,
Mhm.
and he always does a lot of pre-made stuff. And okay, I know you're interested in this. Here's what I've got coming up. What do you think? And I said, yeah. And then he'll finish them out. If somebody's going to buy them, he'll finish them out, or he'll bring them to the shows. And I have quite a few of his pieces.
Yeah, really nice guy. I've known him for a while. He'd be set up at Big Wow and everything too. I think he's a West Coast guy. At least he was back then. I think he still is, but no, it does really nice work.
Now, this is he goes by Lance Hunru. Now he currently has my sketchbook. My volume 5 is with him. He's doing a Brother Voodoo commission for me, but you really can't. You'd have to see this in person. The gold that he used, gold paint, and the flower and the dragon and everything really pops off the page with the gold paint.
Yeah, the
But
composition on this thing's fantastic.
you can just sense the power, the way she's posed and holding the blade. I was a fencer for a lot of years, and I mean, I've never been kendo, with the Japanese swords, but you
Mhm.
respect the power and the movement.
Wow, that's really nice. Now did you say that was in a sketchbook?
That's in one of my sketchbooks. Yes.
See, that's something you want to look at every day. Yeah, no, I mean it's wonderful. Yeah,
He
that's
did a
great.
piece for me. It's not any. It has Wolverine versus Silver Samurai. I
Hmm.
think it is. The piece that he did is also a lot of power to it. Now,
These
I only did one of his pieces, but I have quite a few. Again, I'm a Western fan, but his name is Scott Rory. He's in Georgia. I hope he's on tonight. I told him I would feature one of his pieces. But look at the detail on this, the man with no name. He also did a piece for me, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. And then he did The Wild Bunch for me. So I love his movie related work. He did Idris Elba's character in Dark Tower
Oh yeah,
as the gunslinger,
gunslinger. Yeah.
right? But I love the detail and just photorealism that he did and putting this together. It's one of my favorite pieces that he did. And like I said, all of these people I've named, they are still up and available for commissions and stuff. And I would be happy to connect anybody with any of the artists that they see.
Well, the next one I think few folks will remember, Miles Wool. Yeah,
Right.
he's been at the first two OAX shows. I mean, were you familiar with Miles before OAX?
No, actually, Tony Moy introduced me to Miles. And he said, "Hey, I got a guy that you're really going to love his work. And let me bring you over and introduce him." And I went over, and he had sketch covers. And he had a sketch cover that was painted. It was an acrylic paint on a sketch cover. I'd never seen that before. I didn't even know that was possible. And I bought that piece for him. And he showed me a couple of pieces. He was developing his own book, and he was doing character studies. And he had a character called, and it's in my gallery somewhere, called Will Weasel. And he's kind of like a Thor character, carries a hammer with runes and stuff on it.
Mhm.
But he had a picture of a panda dressed in medieval garb in a tree playing a lute. That was one of his characters from his book. And he said, "Well," I said, "Well, do you mind doing something in my book?" He said, "Well, if I can paint." I said, "Sure, you can." He says, "Well, do you mind if I do one of my characters from my upcoming book?" And I said, "Hey, you can do whatever you want." And he did Will Weasel. And since then, he's done some other things for me. And this is one of the pieces. I have probably about 8 or 9 different paintings from him, including one he did from Fire and Ice. I think he had it on display at OAX. He asked me to bring it so he can put it on display, of a Dark Wolf fighting the subhumans. It was a large acrylic painting.
There, I just threw a link into your Miles Wool collection, that you have posted to your CAF. And Jeff Wedding actually said Miles will be sharing the booth with them in San Diego in a few weeks. Oh, cool.
That's cool.
Awesome.
He is a really good guy and is very talented.
Yeah, agreed. He was at Heroes Saturday only, I think, but he dropped off a commission for Tom McDonald that was really great. I actually made it the show graphic for the CAF update on Thursday because it's just such a striking image. His colors really pop. I mean, and again, just such a nice guy. I mean, really really talented. We were happy to have him at the show over the first 2 years, and he's coming back for year three too.
He did that competition that Todd McFarlane had about
Hmm.
painting Spawn, and he did a Spawn piece. He had it on display at OAX at the end of the show. Excuse me, and I waited to the end because I wanted somebody else to get a shot at it. But I bought that Spawn piece. He's done Weapon X for me and different things. But I mean, I love his work.
No, yeah, I can't agree with you more. I think everybody should have something by Miles in their collection. He
And
did
the
some
fact that
really
he's
phenomenal like 8 by 10, like just bust paintings, of Captain America. Can't remember them all, but he had like maybe 8 to 10 of them in the
Mhm,
X room that we had last year. Everything sold. It was just they were just so gorgeous. I mean, he did that great Rorschach for Tom McDonald.
mhm.
He did those two, and I was blown away. I was disappointed I didn't commission him after seeing his work in person. So yeah, he's a very talented guy.
And just to he's a good guy, but he's still doing sketch cards,
Yeah,
for card sets, and he paints each one. I mean, that's a lot of work, but he does, and the detail on those little cards is amazing.
yeah. Nope, I know. He's a great guy. Now I think we only have one more piece to look at.
Really?
It's by
Wow.
Chris Marion.
Yes. He did Nova. He's done. My first piece from him was a Submariner in my book, but this is the latest piece that he's done for me, and I thought it was pretty cool because when I came up with the idea and we talked about it, he hadn't seen the TV show, he hadn't seen the movie,
Yeah,
he
the
didn't see
movie.
any of it. So he said, "Well, before I commit to it, I got to see the movie and see what I'm dealing with." But he called me up and he said, "Hey, I think I've got a concept," because I wanted to know how he was going to do Kamala when she didn't fly, like the rest of them. You know what I mean? How are you going to? He
Right.
said, "I think I figured out." And as you can see with her little stepping stones, he was able to figure it out.
Yeah, he's got a few pieces on calf. I mean, he's been around for a little while. I've always
Yeah.
thought his stuff was good.
James Pasco introduced me to him.
Hmm.
And he said, you know, I got a guy that I think, oh, excuse me, strike that. It was Dan Parsons, because I know Dan from, you know, my area until he moved out west. But he said, I got a friend that you can, you know, I think he'd be great for your book. And and I've been never been disappointed, you know, with these guys. So, if somebody recommends somebody for me, you got to stop and listen to that, you know.
Yeah, Dan's a good guy, good painter too. Yeah, he knows a good artist when he sees one.
Now, I gotta tell you, if this is the end of it, now I think you could probably pull this up from my gallery, but
Sure.
Tommy Castillo,
Okay.
he's passed away now.
Hmm.
Well, Tommy, I was at Baltimore, and a group of guys came over. He said, "Hey, this was on a Sunday morning," and he said, "We were out last night with Tommy." And he said, we were telling him about your sketchbook. He just couldn't believe, you know, what was happening. And he said that if you came by, you need to come by his table and show him your sketchbook because he really wants to see it. So I said, okay. Now I had seen Tommy's table. He used to have like 3, 4 tables, a whole corner, and all of his stuff was very
He used to
expensive.
always have like the really tall wall full
Right,
of stuff.
right.
Yeah, you're right. In a long booth.
And I avoided that area because I knew that would get me put out the house. I just stayed away from Tommy. So anyway, so I got the book and it was the and I brought it over. It's the first volume, and I brought it over and he's looking through it, and there was a drawing in there of Heath Ledger's Joker, and it was done by an artist named Jim Kyle from New Jersey. He was the one I told you can't tell what he did the drawing almost like crayon.
Right.
But anyway, he did it, and Tommy stopped on that page and he starts laughing. And I said, "What's funny?" He says, "I designed Heath Ledger's makeup for that movie." So he's laughing. I said, "Wow, you know, I didn't know he was, you know, that kind of guy." So he's looking while he's looking through the book on the table. He had this what looked like a graphic novel, but it was a collection of sketches and drawings. And
Hmm.
he said it was character studies for a book that's possibly optioned for a movie called The Dark Side of Oz. And it showed like Dorothy and the Tin Man and all that, but they were like warriors, like muscle bound, fighting, like the lion is fighting with a sword, it's got arrows sticking out of him. It was like that. So this piece here, this is the no, this is the second piece. So there's another one in there of Munchkin. Yeah, that one. Okay, so Tommy says to me, he says, "I want to do something in your book." I said, "Tommy, I got to be honest with you, dude. I can't afford what you're doing. I just can't." And he said, "No, no, no, no." He said, "How much you got? What we got?" I said, "Tommy," and it was Sunday, right at the end of the show. I had like $160 left, and I said, "Tommy, I can't do it." He says, "Well, I tell you what." He says, "How about I charge you $125?" I said, "Serious?" And I said, "Oh man, he's gonna do something, and it's gonna be, you know, it's gonna be pencil whipped and whatever." And I was like, "Oh man, I don't know if I want to do that." But he was adamant about it. So I said, "Okay." I said, "I'll come back in a couple hours." He said, "No, no, come back in like 40 minutes. I said, "Oh crap, here we go." And I said, he's gonna pistol whip me, but you know, pencil whip something. I didn't want to be
He was
disrespectful.
fast. I remember. Yeah,
So
he
I left half hour. I was walking by to go somewhere else, and he called me and said, "I'm finished." And I was like, "Oh, my head slumped." And I was like, "Oh man." He did this drawing in a half hour, and he said, "I used sepia color pencil to make it look like an old photograph or something." He did this in a half hour. And then the next year I came back and he said, "Let me see that book. Did it finish?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "I'm working on the second one." He said, "Let me do something in that." Again, same thing. I said, "Tommy, I can't afford what you charge." He said, "What I charge you for the other one?" I said, "Okay." He said, "Yeah, I'll do it for that." So I didn't know what he was going to do, but he picked another character from his Dark Side of Oz, and you could show it. He did the other one, but he didn't tell me he was going to do 2 pages. So I had to skip a page and all kinds of stuff. And he did one of the flying monkeys with leather jacket and wings and everything. And I was sad, very sad to hear that he had passed away. But that guy, he was a great guy. And he didn't have to do what he did, but he said he wanted to be in that book and in both books. And I was very grateful for that.
Yeah, he was like well, Marcus said, a great artist, great person. You always knew where he was on the floor. I mean, you could if you didn't see him, you could hear him because
Right.
he yeah, no, he was a loud personality. But somebody I know that I can't remember what I've picked up a few things from him. I feel like I got something at a auction at one of the shows, like maybe Pittsburgh Comic Con back in the day. But no, good guy, and he was always on the circuit. That was the thing. You almost saw him everywhere you went.
Yeah, when he got sick and he started to lose his eyesight and they didn't think he'd be able to draw anymore, and he bounced back, and I thought he was doing pretty well, but it was sad to see him go. He was a very nice guy.
Definitely. Well, I mean, but you got two great pieces. You might.
Yeah, I
Is that
did.
all you got, or did
Did.
you get some others that haven't made it to CAF yet?
Yeah, no, just for him, I only have the two, and he did them in the
Okay.
sketchbook, and I'm grateful. There's probably in all the artists that I've dealt with my sketchbooks, I think probably over the years about 20 have passed away. But the one that I didn't do, and I kicked myself, Jerry Robinson was at a
Mm.
show in Baltimore, and he had his book out about the Joker, and I got him to sign the book, and I had a chance to get him to draw something, and I said, I'll catch him next year, and he passed away. So I was sorry to, it's been a few of those near misses, but there's so many great artists out there. You suck it up, you move on, and try to find the next. I try to find the people that are up and coming that really need the boost. And people have gotten jobs or collaborations from other artists based on what they've seen in my sketchbooks.
Hmm. Yeah. No, I get it. I mean, what's your the remainder of your year look like for shows? I mean, if somebody
Well, to
might
tell you
see
the
you at one of
truth, I missed Awesome Con.
them.
Um, and because I've been running around, I've been engaged in a new hobby. I'm also, amongst the things that I collect, fragrances, colognes and stuff from all around the world. I would say a modest collection. Most people would say not modest, that it's out of control, that I probably need some sort of therapy. But as I started collecting, I started going out to people that make perfumes and saying, hey, can you do custom blends for me? Mix this fragrance and this fragrance and all of that. I was doing that. Then I would say, okay, here's one that I want these notes. Can you make this from scratch for me? And I had people, one guy's in Kuwait and Georgia and Florida, and I had different people doing different things. So I said to myself, I wonder if I could do it. So last December, part of a cruise, I was able to go to this place in St. Martin that I've been trying to get to for years. Took a group of people and we learned to make our own fragrances. Then when I got back, I went to another class, and then a couple months ago, I went to another class. By this point, bought my own oils. I bought my own this. My living room and kitchen looked like a perfume factory. Threw up in here. So, but since December to now, I've probably created about 50 different fragrances. To what end, I don't know. I just wanted to be good at it. You go to Macy's and you let them sample your stuff and see what they have to say. But and I've conquered that mountain. Then I go to Neiman Marcus, and I've been invited to master classes where you meet the perfumers and the people that own the companies. I've been going to those for years. But now I can make stuff on par with these people. And I think that's a good feeling. Now, what I'm going to do with that skill set, I don't know. But right now, it's like art. You come up with an image in your head and you got to get it down on paper. It's the same thing. I come up with a formula for a fragrance, and well, that's what I've been doing now. So
Yeah.
it's
Chef
just
Wedding
one.
says you'll have the best smelling sketchbooks on the con circuit. And I think Alberta would like it if you would, make him a special Captain America fragrance.
Well, it's funny you should say that. I went to visit Nick last weekend. We didn't get a chance to do the show. He had canceled the show, but I was there to do his show. And I brought his Nick and Amy and Rex and John. I gave them some fragrances that I
Uh-huh.
created, but I created a special fragrance just for Nick because he's a Daredevil fan. It's called Hell's Kitchen. So,
I bet it's
and
very
he
spicy.
he
I don't
loves
know.
it. It's a blood red color and So, and it's in a fancy bottle.
Dude.
So he says he loves it. So it's nice and spicy. You would expect Daredevil not to wear some sissy thing, right?
No,
So
of course not.
yeah,
It's
so
like
it's
fire
pretty
and
spicy.
brimstone. I don't know. There's it's conjuring up many different thoughts. But all right. Well, hey, somebody said, if you can make something for Alberto, he definitely would wear it at OAX 2026. And we could make him a special T-shirt for it too. Like I'm wearing Ron Shepard's cap cologne.
Well,
Yeah,
you know what? I will think about that, and but I definitely will make a couple of custom fragrances that could be giveaways at your next event if you want.
Dave, we would welcome it, and
Yeah.
we'll make a T-shirt to go along with it too. It'd be fun.
It says, I smell like Ron. Yeah, that'll go over very well.
Well, I hope you can make it, Ron.
Yeah,
But
I do.
that would be good. But what shows though? I mean, do you have is
Oh, well, the show that I never miss is Baltimore. So
Baltimore's the
that
main
won't
one?
be
Yep.
to the fall, but there'll be a couple little smaller ones in between. If I get a chance to go, I will. But Baltimore is my next show that I'm looking at, is going to be at.
All right. See, Robert Berman knows cologne and deodorant very welcome in our circles.
Yes,
You
man.
could you could
Hey,
have your own
hey,
table at Baltimore.
I have been at many small shows where people have shown up when their hygiene has been a little questionable, right? Make you back
Like
off from the table.
you could have like something just like flips out, like the cigarette girl at
Yeah.
at a popular club in the 1940s or
Cigar,
50s, right? You could be
cigarettes,
like, I
deodorant
think
for your
you're
ass.
this
you know, it's like,
little
look,
sample bottles.
you're making me back off from the table. So just could you just settle down? Because
Oh no, we've all been
especially
around those kind of people, without
especially
question.
after some of the guys have been out all Saturday night and they've drugged themselves into the convention on that Sunday, that last Sunday
There was a
morning.
show, there was like a Wizard World Chicago where they were giving out like small things of deodorant or something. I remember,
Yeah,
and they were welcome. I don't
yes,
think
they
people were
were.
happy to be able to get them. I forgot all
Yeah, so
about that.
there's been a lot of that. The comic
Oh
book
man.
people aren't, they need to pay
Well,
attention to those things. But it was great. I'm glad that you had me on the show. I hope that it was entertaining for
oh, it
everybody.
was Ron. It really was. Like I say, I don't think we've had anybody. I haven't talked to a single person in 5 years that mailed a sketchbook around. I can guarantee you that. I haven't. I didn't even know that was still a thing because I used to be a big commission collector when I got started in the late '90s, and even then, I don't think I never sent a sketchbook around, not once. But I knew other collectors that did back then. But it's not something that I've heard of too often, hardly at all in the last 10 years. So no, I think that's cool. I think it's good for people to know that there's an alternative out there, especially when it's working with artists that you can trust and you've worked with
Right,
before. And and those are the best ones because you know you're going to get something good. And like you said, it's not like a commission where you've just sent them money and they've got to use their own paper and send it back to you. They're staring at that sketchbook every day. they
yeah,
they want to get it back, packed and out and sent back to you. So it's kind of not a bad approach. It's just one that I think is would be tough to get used to because you are sending, after you get it halfway full, you've got a lot of art that you're shipping
yeah.
around.
It's the amount of money. I don't know how much these things are worth as a collection, but I know how much I spent on each book. And when I
Exactly.
did that first book, it was a lot. But
Yeah.
then again, when you want that kind of detail, people can't do that at the shows. So,
Hmm.
what are you going to do? But I
Right.
have had artists over the years look through a book and say, no, I'm not going to do a commission for you. They don't want to have their stuff in there because they don't think it's comparable to everybody else's. So people have turned me down. So,
Well,
but it's worth doing. But like I said, anybody that we talked about, if you look at my gallery and look at the names and you want to get connected to, some of the local people and things, I'll be happy to give out information. And to the artists that I didn't include tonight, which is a lot, I'm sorry, but I was limited. This would have to be part 4, 5, 6, and 7 kind of thing.
well, I threw a link to your gallery in the chat one more time, and it's good to remind everybody that in the show description too, there's a link to Ron's CAF Gallery. So I'd encourage everybody, to check it out. Leave some comments tonight too. Why not, right?
Yeah.
There's of art to look at. And I think, I mean, easily, you have like 400 or 500 artists, listed under, as we kind of break them out for you. There's a lot of art to check out. So thanks for doing this, Ron. I mean,
Yeah, no problem. I
I
look
think,
forward to doing it again. I look
yeah,
forward to doing it again.
hey, it's always good to discover new talent too. So that I think, if that would be a good theme on a return visit sometime in the future. Definitely, Ron.
Thank you.
All right. So again, thank you everybody for hanging out with us this evening. We enjoyed your company. We'll be back at it again real soon. But Ron, thanks, man. I appreciate it, and I do
Hey,
hope
thank
you can
you,
make it out to
everybody.
2026. If you can, we are going to have a talk about some options there for some fragrance options. So
Oh yeah,
once
I
you're ready,
definitely would do something. I
we'll,
would
we'll,
do
we're
something.
going to talk. All right. Thanks again, everybody. You guys have a wonderful evening, and thanks.